What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR, Bitcoin. We're going to be going over some different charts, indicators, and we'll also be talking about some key things that relate to crypto. Pretty much the same thing, but we'll touch on some other things that we sometimes talk about on this channel, but not too often. Make sure you guys like and subscribe on these videos if you enjoy the content. It always is appreciated here on this channel. I always appreciate all of your support, as always. Let's get straight into it. So here on the weekly, you can see last week was a very solid week. This week started off pretty good, and now it looks like we could be getting some kind of retracement. Let's see if yesterday or today, last trading day, is going to be hopefully the bottom, but at the same time, we could be potentially trying to fill this this gap here. We'd be filling this gap before making our way up. We are still at this key level of support and resistance, so hopefully we can hold this. We definitely want to get a break above these 2 wicks here. That would be a key level that I would be looking at right now. After we surpass this key level of support, I'd be looking at this right here. Getting a break and close on the daily above here would be very, very important. And we could potentially start to move up, of course, depending on Bitcoin, because this thing looked like it was very ready to move, but then Bitcoin started to fall off a little bit. The day held up pretty well for the most part, and then the last, I want to say, it was pretty much the last 2 trading hours, we kind of just fell off a little bit, and now we're sitting at 443 post-market. On the 4-hour SMAs, we're extremely bullish. As you can see, we got the 20 crossing the 50. And on the 1 hour, we are actually closing. We actually closed underneath the 20 on the 1 hour. So now that opens up the idea of potentially retesting and then pushing down further, but we'll see. I could definitely see us filling the gap. We'll see what happens tomorrow morning. Hopefully Bitcoin just takes off and then this just absolutely starts to rip. Although today was a red day, the volume was higher than it was these past days over here. When you take a look at like the average, it wasn't very high, but it was a higher day than a lot of the days that we've seen previously. So I'll line up where we were at today, and today you can see we're sitting at around that level. So it wasn't incredibly high volume, but it was higher than these days over here. So hopefully the trend can continue, but in a bullish manner. The past 2 days when we were getting some momentum going, honestly, it looked like it was ready to rip, but it was just a little hesitant because Bitcoin wasn't ready to absolutely rip to the upside just yet. So it looks like it's ready to break out on Bitcoin, but we'll see where it takes us. If we do get that breakout, I do think MSTR should ramp up pretty quickly. I don't know if we'll ever catch up to where we're supposed to be, especially when you look at the ballistic acceleration model. We are undervalued by like 25% or so. So I don't know if we're going to catch up. Hopefully we do, because we typically deviate to the upside and to the downside. But we've only been deviating to the downside as of lately because of lack of volume, lack of Bitcoin breaking out. When we look here at Bitcoin, you can see it's still very early in the week. And I was saying I'd rather get our retest early on. I was saying this in the last video because I was saying after we got our close here on the weekly that we're going to touch this trend line here at some point. Looks like we already got our retest. It retraced a little bit deeper down to 115, potentially looking for a bounce here. And we still have 5 days, so this thing can absolutely rip to the upside, and then this gets flipped to a green candle and end up being an extremely bullish week. But as of now, we're still sitting at 117,837. I think Bitcoin held up pretty well. On the daily, we still have 1 hour left before we get the close. So ideally, we want to get a close back above 118,400 or higher. I think that would be incredibly bullish. Of course, if we can break above this 123 wick right here, that opens up the idea of us touching that midline. And when we take a look at the 4 hour, I do think if we can break this wick here, this opens up the idea of us running up to the 120s. Like I said, we need to break above this wick, close, and retest this trend line and then move up. So I made a post talking about it, saying if we broke above this white line here, which we did, I said that we would touch this trend line, which we did. And I said, if we hold that trend line, we could see 120s pretty quickly, but we didn't hold it. So we just got rejected off of it. At the same time, I did say on another post to watch for a potential head and shoulders being formed. Not saying it's going to play out, but you have a left shoulder, a head, and potentially a right shoulder being formed. If we were to, if we were to push up, push back down, push up, and then break this wick here. If we break that to the downside, then you could probably see some kind of downward pressure. Not saying that's gonna happen, but I just want you guys to be aware of it. If you start to see a struggle to break this, then it could be forming that right shoulder, and then we could end up falling. But I do think if we break this wick here at 118.5 roughly, then I think we should see 120s if we can hold this level. We have to hold this upward sloping trend line. But I always want to give you guys both sides. I want to give you the bullish and the bearish. If I see it, sometimes I might not see it because I miss it. Nobody's perfect, so I try to give you guys my best view on the market, zooming out and everything. And like I said, on the larger scale, we are looking pretty good. I do think we have higher to go. And when you measure out that bull flag, it's looking promising. It looks like it's starting to play out. And it lands us at like 146. So we'll see where it takes us. And when you pull a fib from the top of this wick here to the bottom here, the 1618 sits at 135. The 1272, where we just found rejection at, a perfect lineup right there. If you can see that, at 122 was the 1272. We found rejection off of that. So let's see if we can break above that, hold, retest, and then see if we could break through 1618. We might find more resistance there, which might coincide with this middle line of the entire channel. And actually, I'm going to pull a fib here and see where we're at for this leg. So from this pull down to this leg. Let's see where that takes us. That 1272 is almost in the same spot, but the 1618 is much higher. So maybe that's where we're going. So potentially, we were just finding rejection off of this 1272 and not this leg here. Maybe we're finding it off of this one. So maybe we found an exact push off of that. You see that rejection? That was to the T off of this 1272. So this might be the more valid one that we should actually be looking at. When you take a look, that was perfect. So now that leads me to believe that maybe this is where we should be looking for that next level of chop or some kind of resistance at that 143 level, which of course lines up with that bull flag that we just talked about playing out. It lines up with that. I'm not saying it's going to be exact. Nothing's exact. So if I'm talking about 143 to 150, or even 138 or something, it's always an area more than anything. You just want to be in the ballpark and you can make good money. But that's kind of where I'm looking right now. It kind of makes sense. So we'll see if we can break through that and hold that and eventually make it to that 1618, which lines up at that 143 marker. So on our daily SMAs, we already have our 20 pushing above our 50, a nice solid push. It is starting to catch up to price a little bit. Hopefully this can continue to separate to the upside. On the 4-hour, we did fall underneath our 20. You can see that we broke underneath, pushed up to try and break it again, and we got rejected. That happened earlier in the day. And now let's see, it is trying to push back up. Let's see if we can push through that 20 right now and get a close. Of course, if we get a close right here on the daily, this 4-hour candle, it would line up with the daily. So this is the 4-hour chart, but we have 55 minutes for the entire day for Bitcoin. Because if you look at the daily, you can see on the 4-hour, it's 54 minutes. And then when you go on the daily, it's still 54 minutes. So I'm still referring to a daily close. When I'm talking about this, if we can close right there or higher, I think that's going to be incredibly bullish. Because it would be above this wick and it would be above this 4-hour 20 moving average. And last time we held that, we got a nice push to the upside. And when you take a look at the global liquidity here on Bitcoin, this is the 79-day offset. I don't know if it's exact. I don't really care if it's exact. All I know is the trend is trending upward. And that's all we really care about. So hopefully we can continue that trend upward and get some momentum to the upside. It looks like we still have a nice steady climb, and then we have a nice aggressive move before seeing some kind of major retracement. It is holding this trend pretty well. I'm not sure if we've just broken this trend line here on global liquidity. Who knows? We'll find out, of course. But it is looking pretty good, at least for the upcoming, weeks and months. So I do expect Bitcoin to kind of trend upward from here, at least for the time being, before we see some kind of retracement. So something that we spoke about before is the fact that we actually get a lot of our rallies during the pauses, which I don't really hear too many people talking about, or any. I feel like we tend to rally during these pause periods very often. So I'm using these lines here. Actually, let me change it the color because I'm going to leave that other orange line. So I'm going to leave the green ones here, or the lines that I'm just trying to show you. It's not 100% like foolproof, but you can get the idea. I just want you guys to see that. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in here. I hope this isn't too too much going on. I hope it's not too visually distracting. But the green lines, you can see that's when we have a pause here. So the pause or the interest rates are the pink, and you can see the green space is where we were paused, and you can see what price did. Price did pretty well. You can see that's a pretty significant move to the upside. Let me take this off. So you see the first example that I'm talking about. You can see this next one here. We paused here, this large pause here. You can see that we had a very aggressive move to the upside. We got our 2021 top. You can see that pretty clear. And then we rallied up on the interest rates. And then we had another pause. And you can see we had a pretty significant move to the upside. And now we have a pause again. So now I'm wondering, does that take us to higher levels? How long are we going to be paused for? I don't know. When you check the Fed CME watch tool, we're sitting at like 97% for another pause. So if the pause extends, and like we've seen previously, get those like moves to the upside, maybe we continue to rally up. I hope. You guys let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think this is irrelevant, or do you think this plays a role in what's going on with Bitcoin? Make sure you guys like and subscribe on these videos. I always appreciate it. On to Tether Dominance. We're sitting at 434 right now. The SMAs are bearish at the moment. We had the 50 pushing down below the 20, and on the daily, we're looking very, very nice. We got the 20 pushing underneath the 50 and the 200. So we got a nice amount of rejection off of this key level, which we spoke about in the last video. If we can wick fill this, which I think we spoke about in the last video, I was saying if we could push up, get rejected, and fill this wick right here for a nice red candle, that would be perfect. That's going to spark a rally on Bitcoin, and that's going to push us to that 412 level, where we could probably find a little bit of support, and that would coincide with this wick right here. Let me take these SMAs off. That would coincide with this wick right here. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And if we can break through that level, then I see us at 3.9 potentially. I don't know if we'll get down there, but this is looking very promising after seeing this wick where we pushed up to this level and found that rejection. So I think we can have a pretty significant move to the upside. You can see we're getting a nice move to the downside, and we just broke these wicks right here, which opens up the possibility of us touching potentially 431 on Tether Dominance, which is bullish for Bitcoin. It's risk off to risk on as this drops down. So this is a rotation of capital from stable coins into Bitcoin when this goes down, and vice versa. On Bitcoin dominance, which I was actually surprised to see because Bitcoin dominance has been absolutely ripping to the upside for forever, it feels like. It's been going up since, let me keep going back. It's been going up since December 2022. And honestly, I'm still not even excited yet because it might not even mean anything. But here on the weekly, you can see we're holding this line pretty well. We broke out. Looks like we pushed back to the zone, retested, and actually fell underneath, closed, retested here, and now we're pushing back down. And we broke underneath this wick, which is a nice sign, but we still have to break all these wicks here. We have a lot of wicks here. We have a lot of wicking action here. So we don't have any clean moves yet. We won't really see a clean move until we get to around this region here. Once we get here, there's really not much traffic. You can see this is kind of, it doesn't look too good. So it can be pretty choppy. Not saying that we can't fall straight through, because it can. But once we break that, you'll have a clean move all the way down to about 58. You break around 56.9 to 56.5. You can fall all the way down to 54 to around 55 and so on. But this is a nice sign. As this drops, this is kind of like sparking the altcoins, if anything. This is no way, shape, or form saying that altcoin season is beginning, but this is a nice start. You usually have your cycle tops once you get these aggressive moves to the downside and you surpass this 45 region. That's usually where you get that top. But you see these large drops when alt season kicks in, which we have not seen. You can see it in 17, you can see it in 21, but we're not even close to that. On the larger picture, we are incredibly bullish. Like this is just a regular week or month. Nothing really significant has happened. It's just nice to see Bitcoin dominance actually drop for once. Now we are actually at our 20-week SMA on Bitcoin dominance. So if we can close underneath that, that opens up the idea of retesting and actually falling to our 50, which could ignite a nice little rally for altcoins. And here on the daily, we actually fell underneath our 20 and our 50. And our 20 looks like it's about to push underneath our 50. Whenever you get to 20 pushing underneath the 50, it might signal some kind of bearish move to the downside, which could, like I said, get altcoins going. And then that brings me to my next point, which is kind of still in line with what we were just talking about. ETH Bitcoin has been in an absolute downtrend nonstop. And now we actually are pushing above these wicks for the first time. We've actually broken the trend. So it looks like we're trying to get a breakout. We'll see if that actually holds true. Could be a fake out, of course, but it is looking pretty promising. If ETH Bitcoin starts to rally up, then that will also be another indication that alt season could be beginning, but I don't think we're anywhere near it yet. Like I said, it could be that leading indicator because you do need ETH to start rallying if you want smaller coins to rally. If ETH isn't even outperforming Bitcoin, then a vast majority of crypto or altcoins will not outperform Bitcoin. That's pretty much all I have for you guys here. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and drop a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one.